Hi, I'm Rowan, and I'm a secondary educator. If I had to describe myself as a student teacher in one word, it would be ingenue.
Welcome to Gym Shorts, a podcast from Ophea. We're a Canadian charity that prioritizes student health, well-being, and belonging in classrooms, schools, and communities. For over 100 years, we've been working to make gym class every student's favorite part of their day. Through this podcast, we explore the powerful and personal stories behind our earliest experiences with health and physical education. In each episode, we speak with guests about experiences from school that shape their future relationship with physical activity and well-being. These stories offer honest reflections on how our past informs the present and how we can all work together to create happier, healthier, and more inclusive futures for all students. Now, let's get into today's story. Hi, I'm Andrea Haefele, and I'm a health and physical education curriculum consultant at Ophea. Before we begin, a quick note. This episode may contain discussions about bullying or other negative school experiences that may be upsetting or triggering for some listeners. We encourage you to take care while listening and pause if you need to. With this in mind, let's begin today's conversation. Meet Rowan. As a child, he grew up surrounded by a family of educators. So when it came to his health and physical activity, playing sports was simply a way of life.
I come from a family of physical educators, so my role models and the people that kind of modeled what to expect from physical education and what taking care of myself and my body looked like started literally at home. I played competitive rugby and hockey and baseball and soccer growing up. There was always a sport that we were doing, and my dad always made sure that I had a whole bunch of equipment and all the right shoes for every single sport that I wanted to play.
But no matter how many sports Rowan played, he wasn't immune to the pressure of comparing himself to others around him.
But there's also, navigating how that feels as a young person growing up and developing into your body while other people are also developing into their own bodies. And how do I feel about my own body in comparison with other people? How does that stack up in competitive sports?
Fortunately, he found a great role model in American rugby star Ilona Mayer.
And at a sport like rugby, which all bodies have a purpose and place, she talks about the role of imposter syndrome. She was asked a question like, how do you manage imposter syndrome? And she basically said, I don't have that. I have no idea what that is. And then follows up with, it's okay to be proud of what you've done. It's okay to believe that you deserve something because you put in the work for it. And that's something that I'm trying to remember and quote to myself on a regular basis, because your relationship with physical activity is a journey that is never ending. And it's okay for that journey to be nonlinear and winding, or to lose track and come back to it. That's part of life.
Rowan learned by being curious, and he didn't shy away from asking the tough questions, especially when it came to physical education and what was being offered.
I asked a lot about why. Why are we doing this? Why are we offering this choice of activity? Should there be different activities for single gender classes? I remember boys and girls kind of had parallel topics up until certain points where the physical activity choices would differ. Boys got to do wrestling and girls got to do gymnastics. And when I asked a little bit more about why, it was kind of, this is what's always been done. And I'm like, okay, so that's an answer, but is it the answer that I want as a teacher? I wanted to probe further, or, different people did different fitness testing pieces with different kind of frameworks.
Rowan recalls an especially formative moment early in his teaching career, being faced with planning a grade 9 girls phys ed class for the first time.
The most memorable parts of Teachers College were not really what in the classroom with the professors or the other people. It's actually out in the field, in the classroom, figuring out what this job actually looks like. I remember when I started my very first kind of experience in an LTO, a long-term occasional position, where I was going to be in a classroom that was my own without having any other kind of supervision or oversight. And I was really excited. But the class that I got was a grade 9 girls phys ed class. And for a long time in education, physical educators would be matched with the gender that they align with to be able to teach to them.
Fortunately, Rowan focused on finding shared experiences and interests to connect with the students and ask those tough questions of himself.
Being a physical educator means that you are educating all students, regardless of how many shared experiences you have with them, whether that is gender, religion, sexuality, culture. You have to find a way to still connect with all of those students. And it really kind of forced me to dig deeper into my repertoire and ask questions about what my students were hoping for in the class, because I didn't have any preconceived notions beyond what my own experiences were. And I don't have the same shared experiences as the people that I was supposed to teach. And you can't teach people unless you're willing to be a learner with them. And so I remember asking lots of questions and really working on developing relationships with the students that were in front of me.
This allowed Rowan's teaching philosophy to be shaped by student voice, especially when it comes to building a culture of trust and honesty, even if that means leading a phys ed program that is always changing.
My positive experiences from when I was able to teach is figuring out what student voice and student choice looks like in the context of classroom learning. And they overlap, like there are similarities within them. It gives students the opportunity to be empowered by sharing, this is what I want to see in my space. That builds engagement. It validates that your teacher is listening to what I'm asking for as a student. That brings inclusion and support as people are realizing that more than one viewpoint is being heard. Like this is a community. It's not a dictatorship. But there's also differences. Like student voice is about their learning experiences, and choice has a little bit more of like what is offered in their educational environment. And both of those things have to exist at the same time. Students shift practice, practice shifts school culture, and over time you develop communities and spaces where people want to be. And I think that building spaces is a never-ending process. And what I've learned overall is that that space that I've created for people that are in front of me, that are tailored to what their needs are, I've never done it the same way twice.
Rowan's message to educators focuses on learning from your mistakes, even the embarrassing ones, while prioritizing your own health and well-being and celebrating successes, no matter how small they might seem.
I learned way more from my mistakes than I ever did my successes, and I made a lot of them. And my big overall message is to proof any videos that you're going to share in front of your classes. I was trying to find something that was innocent, that was stretching, and I found a Jane Fonda workout video. Note to self is every time you're going to put a video on, don't put one on unless you've watched it from start to finish. I was like, that I will never, ever forget. I also had an associate teacher that told me to stop saying to my students, hold your balls. I've learned that the art of classroom management within my gym space is where the students are playing checkers, I have to play chess. I have to be like 3 or 4 steps ahead and know where all the pieces are on the board to be able to have success at navigating, keeping everybody in check and having all the pieces where they need to be to learn and be safe while they are learning. And so having lots of extra tools in my back pocket has helped me win, but goodness, that was hard to learn. Another anecdote from my wonderful mother is that she told me when I was starting my career is that I could lesson plan or do the teaching role 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and still not be done everything that I wanted to accomplish as a teacher. So really having to set hard, firm boundaries in place for myself, and those little victories of little things that I can control and all the thousands of things that you can't control as a teacher in your day, what the school does, what the system's doing, what your class is doing. Those little things that I could control were small victories for me. And I really focused on my little wins to help me stay motivated to grow and invest the time in growing as a teacher.
Every student deserves to feel seen, valued, and included in gym class. Ophea's culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy resource helps educators create inclusive environments where every student can thrive. This free resource offers practical strategies for understanding yourself and your students. Check the link in our show notes to explore the full resource and bring equity and belonging to your gym. I love how you speak about how your own family, specifically your parents, have been such positive influencers in your own teaching career, and
yeah, I think it's thanks to you too. Like you've got you got my mother on Instagram, so she's an influencer in her own right. No, so influence is literal here.
Yeah, full disclosure, I know them very well, and it's just so nice that you've had positive experiences while you're growing up with physical activity, with sports. But I was wondering if you can share a little bit more about your own experience as a teacher, what you've seen, what you've experienced with colleagues, with staff, with different schools you've been to, and also your students. How has that influenced your own approach to education, to teaching, and also shaping your own pedagogy?
So one of the things that I think was really cool about my, teaching and my student teaching experiences is that I was in concurrent education at U of T. So that means that each of my 6 years that I was part of the program, because I played a varsity sport, so I had a little bit of extra time in university. I got to have teaching placements every single solitary year. And the way to get good placements is you kind of had to know people in education. So my parents being little physical education superheroes in my world, I was able to go into schools where I grew up to learn from people that they thought would be good for me to learn from. So I think I had a very curated experience about learning from people that really had the best interests at heart for their students and their school, and what they were sharing with me as a student teacher was good practice. I think we call it like best practice is something that you hear a lot in teaching. There is not really best practice, but there's good practice, common practice, and better practice. And being able to learn from people, sometimes people that were working, I got to be in the same school as my dad for one of my student teaching experiences. So like learning what he would do, actually get to see him in action as a teacher, like mind blowing, the amount of skill and the relationships that he would have with kids and the stuff that he was able to do in his classroom, and being able to control 60 high school students doing intramurals with high jump mats, just like incredible to watch. So really nice to be able to learn from people that the people that are in my corner recommended for me, opened a lot of doors to shape what I wanted to be as a teacher. And I can kind of see myself both in my parents and also in their spaces.
Amazing. And I love that nugget, how you spotlighted the building relationship part, and how your own dad, right, to see him in action, to see him in the field, right, to be able to say, you know what, I want that. I want to be able to mirror that with my own students.
And it's so interesting too. Like on his license plate on his car, it says Krabby. So like in our family, he's a little bit cranky or a little bit hard to get to know. The way he is with kids very different. So being able to see kind of that transformation, like dad mode versus teacher mode,
Yeah.
like what you're turning on and off and what kind of characteristics of his personality come out, was also really kind of humanizing to see as well.
Okay, let's build on that. I love that. Like how he really honed in on getting to know the people in front of him, the kids, the students, right? What was that aha moment, that aha experience that helped you realize, hey, culture, you mentioned this quote, culture is a set of behaviors, not beliefs. What was that aha moment with your students at that moment in time that helped you realize, hey, it's me. I'm the person that can shape the attitudes, the behaviors, that culture in my health and phys ed classroom?
It comes from like your curriculum leaders within schools. So department heads in the departments that I've been a part of, the best cultures were shaped by the best leaders. So often, like in some places where I had less positive experiences as a more experienced teacher, the department heads would choose the courses that they wanted to and kind of give free rein to staff over what they wanted to see in their classroom, which is a very common thing to do in teaching. But the places that I was in that I felt the most connected to the school and the community and the purpose and the goal, the department heads were taking the grade 9 classes and working with the new teachers to figure out, like, this is what we're doing. These are the reasons why. And also starting with the incoming students helps define what your culture is going to look like for the next 4 years of high school. People think it's easy because it's grade 9s or they're a little bit awkward, but it really takes a skilled educator to be able to take kids that don't have experience in the world of high school, let alone high school phys ed, and then the layers of puberty on top of that, to take all those kind of characteristics and mold them into a really positive experience is an art form.
Oh, totally. It's an art form. And I love how you made that connection, like the power of being able to create this space where you have maybe 30 plus students coming from different backgrounds, different prior experiences in health and phys ed, positive or negative, that, hey, you get to start that from the beginning and set that behavior, that positive approach to the joy of movement, right? Okay, I'm going to move on to something else, and I know that you spoke a lot about buzzwords, and I'm really curious, like let's move to the buzzwords part, because when you mentioned about, okay, everyone loves buzzwords in education, and sometimes they're used but not really understanding. There wasn't really a clear understanding of what that looks, sounds, and feels like in real life. Can you tell me your most favorite buzzword that you would love to demyth, that you would love to share what it should be and what it could be in our health and phys ed classrooms today?
I think the one that they've made it an acronym. So not only is it a buzzword, but now it's an acronym. So we've taken the buzzwords and made it an acronym. It's called HIP in our board. It's High Impact Instructional Practices.
Okay, tell me more. I've never heard of it.
I know. So it's basically taking instructional strategies, which we've been using for a long time, but the world of technology and COVID has kind of transformed what people understand their tools to be. Like, there are some amazing tools, and I got a chance to write for Ophea for culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy health lesson plans, and looking at the tools and templates that are there. Like, there are so many good tools that are technology free. Looking at a gallery walk, being able to have low stakes engagement where everybody gets to participate at their own pace and share their thoughts and feelings in a way that doesn't out people or call upon them within a moment. Or looking at differentiating an activity. Okay, we're not very good at volleyball, yet. So let's change the ball. Let's change the dimensions. Let's change the size of the court. Let's change the types of touches that are allowed. Like, there are lots of different ways that we're able to get people engaged, but high impact practices have become synonymous in lots of schools with these are the technology pieces that we're able to use and this is the data that we're able to collect, but we're missing some of the pieces that bring the human experiences and that conversation pieces together in organized and meaningful ways. Debates, democracies, small groups, small-sided games versus large-sided games, teaching games for understanding. Like, those are all pieces that we as physical educators like have invested in learning in, but we didn't have access to all of those. And we've kind of forgotten that we have a pool of resources that we haven't engaged in a lot because the world looks different than it did back in 2019, 2020, when it felt like the sky was falling.
Yeah. And you know what? As you are explaining that acronym, the first thing that pops into my mind is student choice and voice. How can we set up our physical environment to get that entry point for each of our learners who come in from different points of experiences, positive or negative, and even their assumptions of what phys ed should be, because sometimes what students assume might just be their historical experiences that might not be what it could be, you know?
Yeah. When I start teaching, I have like a little slideshow that I use, which is a bit of like, it's a little fitness blast on the first day, but you're learning about what to expect within the course. And I call it myth versus fact. And one of my favorite ones, and most students get it wrong, is basketball is in the curriculum. And they're like, yeah, basketball is in the curriculum. Every year that I've done phys ed, yes, we play basketball. And I'm like, it's a myth, actually. Basketball could be included in the curriculum, but we do not have to play basketball to have a phys ed class. And they're like, what do you
Everyone's
mean?
like, what? Who is this
And
teacher?
some kids are like, sir, does that mean we're not going to play basketball? No, we can play basketball, but that's not the only
way
that we're going to play.
And you know what? Okay, as you say that, I can totally see some of the shoulders in your classroom just relax a bit, you know? Like, think about that kid who has had only negative experiences with that sport. Come on now, you know?
Yeah. I've been working for 4 years and I haven't grown and I can't do a layup and I'm never going to be able to dunk. That's okay. They also think that you have to be good at a sport to be able to get a good mark in phys ed.
Yeah.
And that could be like assessment and evaluation is one of the other things that is like, what is it? It's very subjective. When we use the term professional judgment. And again, lovely anecdote from my mom is, as a new teacher, you have no professional judgment yet. So you have to ask questions about, honestly, but it helped because if I didn't know, like I don't have enough experience to be able to be like, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm marking and why, because somebody else told me how to do it. What are other people doing? How are you organizing it? And like, how do you mark phys ed? How do you assess phys ed? Like that is something that I think is an ongoing discussion.
Okay, keyword ongoing, you know, and ongoing for you as the teacher too, right? It's I think that there's a lot of assumptions that teachers should be the one who knows everything. That's the gatekeeper of all the knowledge, you know, that you are the person to be able to do it all. And sometimes no, like I could be in my first year teaching or my 20th year teaching and still not know what I'm doing. And that is okay, right?
Yeah, I think that vulnerability of like acknowledging that is a real appropriate place to be as a teacher. I think
an okay place to be, right?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of like a generational school of thought. Like if I'm looking at my experiences with professors and also like teachers thinking about like math or science or some of those kind of like heavy, kind of academically kind of crafted or like societal connotations that they are very academic subjects. If you're going to point out that there's an error in a math problem or something is misspelled in a grade 12 university English course, like my teachers would have been like, oh, like kind of been defensive.
Who are you?
About it. But I also think like the definition of teacher being the holder of all knowledge versus the facilitator of learning. has been something that's been shifted over time. And so you've got some old school people and you've got some new school people. And sometimes people are a little bit of a mix of both, but it depends on like what your experiences were to be able to figure out like, this is the type of teacher that I aspire to be. And this is what fits with who I am. And that's an identity piece. And I think it's okay for identities to shift and change. The more you know about yourself and the more you know about your craft too.
Yeah. And I think that's really validating to hear, that we are people too. Our assumptions of what phys ed used to be when I entered in my first year teaching versus where I am now in my 20 plus years of teaching is very different. Okay, Rowan, at the beginning of the podcast, we asked you to describe yourself as a student teacher in one word. You shared the word. Can you just share with the audience again?
Ingenue.
Okay, tell us, what does this mean? Why did you choose this word? Please elaborate.
So, like, ingenue normally refers to like the caricature or the stereotype of like a young, naive girl coming into the world. Like, think of like Elle Woods a little bit in like Legally Blonde coming into the world of law school. But I picked it because I think you get kind of teacher dreams, or you get kind of expectations of what the role is going to look like. You kind of be like, yep, I'm the teacher. I'm going to go in. I'm going to meet my students. It's all going to go really well. And then sometimes you're like, okay, it's going to be a lovely Hollywood blockbuster story. And it ends up you're in like Scream. And it's a completely different genre than you are expecting.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, I'm like Jamie Lee Curtis instead.
Love it.
The original Scream Queen. But I think like you don't know until you know. Like you're going into it with expectations, but expectations are different than reality. So you kind of are in your own kind of story arc. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Like you can theorize about it, you can talk about it all you'd like in teachers' calls, but until you're actually living and breathing and doing the job with people in front of you, and 30 students in a gym space with moving objects and sometimes sharp, pointy things, and then announcements, fire drills, like it is organized chaos at the best of times and chaos at the worst of times. And I think ingenue is perfect for going in and expecting the unexpected and not really knowing how it's going to go.
I love that. I love how you were so eloquent in explaining why you chose this word. You know what? It makes me feel comfortable. It makes me almost really rethink how we enter into this space as teachers in health and phys ed and across the school day. Thank you so much. I really valued how you were able to come into this space to share your journey and your teaching career and be really authentic in terms of sharing your own stories on how the people and the spaces that you've been in school communities have shaped who you are as a teacher, who you are as a person, and just really bring the human side into this job and just really embracing the ups and the downs and everything in between. So thank you so much for that.
And thank you for being so kind to me. It's been lovely to be able to spend some organized time to actually hang out because, again, we are busy people invested in lots of different passion projects and trying to make the world of physical education feel a little bit more accessible for lots of different communities. And so it's nice to be able to bring, passion and perspective together and to chat about how wonderful and how incredibly challenging this job is at the same time.
This episode was hosted by me, Andrea Haefele, and was produced by Mike Meehan. Our music was written and performed by Ron Kelly. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. Your support helps us grow and reach more educators, students, and change makers. Until next time, let's keep moving, questioning, and creating space for every student to thrive.